Hello, BookTube. I have a freezing cold, spitting rain, dark as twilight mail haul for you here at the doorstep of summer. Starting with one of these big cardboard things. See what this is. A finished copy of something? Yes. Yes, it's a finished copy of a book that I got the advance copy and I tried to mail it away, and the intended recipient must have given me their address wrong. I cut and pasted it from the email and it came back to me. This is due in mid-June, and this is the finished copy of Anne Hornaday's Talking Pictures, How to Watch Movies. I read the advance copy and thought it was just chock-a-block with great insights, just fantastic insights. I'll have to find a new recipient for it. If there's a big movie fan out there, feel free to sing out in the comments field. I'll move on to this thing here. One of the small percentage of mailings of mine that are unsuccessful. I'm usually successful with mailing out packages. This is another finished copy. It's by Haley Ephron, and it's called You'll Never Know, Dear. A suspense novel. Also due on June 6th, like everything else in the world. This is the much anticipated fifth novel. It's about 3 generations of women haunted by a little girl's disappearance and the porcelain doll that may hold the key to the truth. Okay. All right, well, okay. So this is due on June 6th. Based on that description, I wouldn't read it with a loaded rifle pointed at my face. But as we always say on these mail hauls, it's the quality of the writing that matters, not the hackneyed premise. So I will probably give it a try. I will dip a toe in and see. Typically speaking, this is why I tend to like ebooks, and specifically ebook samples. The thing you can get when you're shopping around, you're sort of window shopping for ebooks on Amazon or the iBookstore or whatever. You'll have an option to download a brief sample of the electronic book. It's kind of sort of meant to be a kind of sort of electronic equivalent of you paging through the thing at a bookstore. It's not exactly like that, because I don't know many people who page just from the beginning to end, or they start on page 1 and move on from there. There's the electronic ebook shopping experience is not quite equivalent to manhandling something in a store. But one neat way, little accidental function that I have used samples for years is if there's a book like this, You'll Never Know, Dear, Mary Higgins Clark type, thriller of a type that will have no characters, no dialogue, no interest, certainly no good prose. If there's something like that, and something about it even slightly interests me, I will download the sample and let the sample do the work. Whether that's unfair or not, whether the author really comes into their own on chapter 30 or not. My rule of thumb with an electronic sample of an ebook is that if I get to the end of it and I really want to read the next page, I'll buy the book. I think that's only fair. If you're given 20, 27, 28, 30 pages of a book, and at the end of that time you're, come see, come saw, as to whether or not you'll even read another paragraph, the author hasn't done their job. They haven't earned your money. So I will do the equivalent with this thing. I will read the equivalent, a chapter or two, and see. If I'm hooked, I'll keep reading. Oh my. I see the minarets of Moscow. This is The Shadow List by Todd Moss. It's another novel. It's a thriller. NPR correspondent Mary Louise Kelly says Todd Moss is reinventing the diplomatic thriller, much as John Grisham reinvented the legal thriller. John Grisham didn't do anything of the kind, now did he? Reinvented the legal thriller? How much time, off the top of your head, do you think passed between The Firm and Presumed Innocent, by somebody who wasn't John Grisham? and how much time had passed between Presumed Innocent and The Verdict, which by someone who wasn't Scott Turow? And they all seem very similar. I don't think there's any reinvention going on at all. But it could be still really good. Let's see here. Uh, we laugh when it pops up in our inbox, the scam letter promising a windfall. We wonder, how does anyone fall for these things? But it is no laughing matter. It is one of the biggest organized crime rackets in the world. It is deadly, and the State Department crisis manager, Judd Riker, has fallen right into the middle of it. I read an article once somewhere about this, about gigantic internet scams, junk mail, email scams that I'd never heard described as one of the best organized crime rackets in the world, but that's an interesting start. In the shadow list, the disappearance of a young American in London sends Riker into the heart of a corruption scandal in Nigeria. At the same time, his CIA agent wife, Jessica, finds herself chasing a Russian master criminal known as the Bear. Unknown to either of them, they are pulling at two ends of the same legal thread, a staggeringly vicious enterprise of piracy, extortion, and murder. The world is messy and dangerous, Jessica warns her husband. More dangerous than you know. But he is about to find out. And one of the dangers we presume he will encounter is the upshot of having made the mistake of marrying a wife who talks in cliches. Till death do they part. All right, so I'm not really sure how the two parts of this cell sheet is stitched together. On the one hand, you've got this guy jetting off to Nigeria to combat criminals, but on the other hand, we have him in the most boring job in the world, email fraud. So I guess it comes out in early September. I guess I'll have to read it to find out how they go together. So that is the shadow list. Email fraud. Just when you look at something like that and you think, oh, come on, of all the premises that will not ever build a good book, that's got to be one of them. But it's all up to the writer. So I've seen it done. So have you. So, okay. All right. Bali Kaur Jaswal. This is the finished copy of her novel, Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows, which I read. This comes out, I think, in early June as well. Yes, it comes out in mid-June. I read it, the advanced copy. It's charming. It's very charming. It's not anything more than that, but it will certainly keep you reading, and it's funny, and the characters are immediate. They're thin, but they're immediate. It's an Indian beach read. I don't know if I've ever read another one, but I can recommend it. I definitely recommend it. But I mean, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, what an ordeal it's been. If you've been watching my 12,560 other videos, you might remember distantly one or two times I happened to mention I'm a big fan of Indian literature, and that I think some of the greatest novels of the 20th century are Indian novels. So it was when I read it, it was kind of a strange feeling to have an author just sort of write chick lit, right, in the Indian tradition. But I found it fascinating. I definitely don't condemn it. It's just I went into it kind of, I guess, maybe expecting a little more than what's there. What's there has all the enthusiasm of unmixed intentions, though. So so I do recommend it. Just caveat emptor. And then this next one is from Dutton, and it is The Taking of K-129 by Josh Dean. How the CIA used Howard Hughes to steal a Russian sub in the most daring covert operation in history. This is due in September. And Josh Dean is a correspondent for Outside Magazine, which I love. I've subscribed to it for years. And a regular contributor to other national magazines, including GQ, Bloomberg, Fast Company, and Popular Science. And he's also the author of The Life and Times of the Stopwatch Gang, which I hated. But this looks like straight up history. So what have we got here? In the early hours of February 25th, 1968, a Russian submarine armed with 3 nuclear ballistic missiles set sail from its base in Siberia on a routine combat patrol to Hawaii. Then it vanished. As the Soviet Navy searched in vain for the lost vessel, a small, highly classified American operation used sophisticated deep-sea spy equipment and found it. wrecked on the seafloor at a depth of 16,000 feet, far beyond the capabilities of any salvage that existed. But the potential intelligence assets on board the ship, the nuclear warheads, battle orders, and cryptological machines, justified going to extreme lengths to find a way to raise the submarine. So began Project Azorian, a top-secret mission that took 6 years, cost an estimated $800 million, and would become the largest and most daring covert operation in CIA history. And I don't know anything about Operation Azorian, so I can't give away whether or not it succeeded. It doesn't seem like it could have, but it also doesn't seem like governments would sit and rest with nuclear warheads sitting at the bottom. I wonder what happened to the crew. I mean, they all died, of course, but I wonder what it was like. What actually happened. And those are exactly the kind of questions that mean I will probably read the book. Great. Okay, so we've got a lot of... Listen, look at that. It's the pub sheet has multiple sheets, and usually that means an interview with the author or a reprint of Publisher's Weekly Review. But in this case, no. in this case, we have a diagram of the Explorer, the exploring vessel and apparatus that Howard Hughes came up with. Okay, that's probably going to win as the geekiest thing that I see today. All right, so the taking of K-129 is that. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this mail haul ends in not 1, not 2, but 3 boxes. So, yay. And we're right up on them. This is the last of the envelopes. What have we got here? Another finished copy? Yes. Yes, another finished copy. This is The Lost History of Stars by Dave Bowling. It's yet another novel. Also due on June 6th. Good Lord. I'll take a picture. I'll take a picture of all the books that have, I mean, they're not all going to observe it, but I'll take a picture of all the books that have the actual release date of June 6th. It's a whole bookstore's worth of books. But let's see here. So who is David Bowling when he's at home? He's a sports writer based in Seattle. He is the author of one previous novel, Guernica, which won the 2009 Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association Award for fiction, and was a Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers selection. Remember the days when I had to memorize those Discover Great New Writers. I was briefly on the panel that picked them for Barnes & Noble, and God almighty. It's yet another. It ended up being, I mean, the Discover Great New Writers program at Barnes & Noble is a great thing. They throw a huge amount of money behind it. It's a financial windfall for the author, and it's prominently placed in stores specifically to get customers to take risks, to see these things. That are the display is usually right near the display of new releases of the titles and authors that they know already. It's also usually right near the bestsellers, so that there's an association of stamp of approval type thing. That's wonderful. That's an unmitigated good that Barnes & Noble's decided to do. But the books? Well, anyway, let's see here. In turn of the century South Africa during the Boer War, British soldiers have forced 14-year-old Letty and her family from their farm and into a concentration camp. Letty's father, grandfather, and brother are off fighting the British, while thousands of Afrikaner women and children endure these filthy, cramped camps, an ever-present threat of disease and starvation. For Letty, the only constant is the struggle for survival. So, hence you've got the African tree with barbed wire. Okay, so this is this guy's second book. All right, historical fiction, Afrikaner historical fiction. All right, so now we've got the boxes. Steve does like a box. They tend to have heft. Sometimes they can, and that's great. Either that or the bigger ones sometimes have multiple titles, which is great as well. Boy, this one is cemented shut. Practically need a muscular teenager to open it. Why is that? Let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. I don't even think I need to look at the pub sheet. I think it's going to be June the 6th. But just in case, we'll give it a try just in case. I am curious, though. No. Oh, no. It's May 15th. All right, so this is long gone. That's all right, though, because I haven't reviewed it. I haven't read it, I don't think. It's Soldiers and Civilization by Reed Robert Bonadonna. We saw this. We saw the advanced copy of this. When Kipling says in The Young British Soldier, "I'll sing you a soldier as fair as I may," he reminds us that a soldier is made of the words of poetry, history, and the laws and language of his calling. The complete soldier is not only a committed warfighter, but also a contributor to the civilization that he or she serves. What absolute codswallop. Oh my God. Oh my God. Drawing from military history, sociology, and other disciplines, Soldiers and Civilizations covers the history of the military profession in the Western world from the ancient Greeks to the present day, and shows how both soldiers and their civilizations have helped mold each other over time. Okay. We had we had a garrison of British soldiers quartered on Boston during the years leading up to the American Revolution, and when war broke out, they were aided by Hessian mercenaries from a German principality about as big as your kitchen. Didn't know the language. Were paid at the end of every month. They weren't contributing to anything, to civilization or anything else, theirs or anybody else's. and in the history of military endeavors, paid Hessian mercenaries of one kind or another, whether they're Hessians or not, have been the rule, not the exception. So manifestly, therefore, not contributing to civilization, theirs or anybody else's. If you're in it for the gold, then you're not contributing to anything. You're not a social force. You're a force of violence. The Italian Renaissance, the city-states of the Italian Renaissance, entirely built that way. In the last 5 centuries of its existence, the Roman Empire entirely manned and guarded that way. That's anyway, that's good, because that means this author will have uphill work to convince me, and that makes the book even more interesting. So, and the author served in the U.S. Marine Corps as an infantry officer and field historian. Well, okay. So he's a true believer. But that doesn't excuse it. That actually makes it worse. He ought to know the history of his own profession better. Well, maybe he does. He participated in the first Marine landings in Beirut in 1982 and in Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. He earned a PhD at Boston University. Good Lord. Okay, so he's been in it. So, well, we'll see. Since it's a May release, I'll get to it right away. Now, here we go. Okay, now speak of the devil. I was mentioning the Indian literary tradition. This is the finished copy. Oh, isn't that lovely? Good Lord. Oh, this is a finished copy of The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy, which I read and really, really liked. A tremendously good novel. And I don't know if did we see the advanced copy of this? I don't know if we did or not. I'm just assuming this will be June 6th. Is this June 6th? It is. OMG. What? Am I going to have just a bookcase for June 6th? Just nothing else? It's not helpless. All right, well, just in case I didn't do this, there's a dazzling new novel from the internationally celebrated author of The God of Small Things. It takes us on an intimate journey of many years across the Indian subcontinent, from the cramped neighborhoods of Old Delhi and the roads to the new city to the mountains and the valleys of Kashmir and beyond, where war is peace and peace is war. It is an aching love story and a decisive remonstration, a story told in a whisper, in a shout, through unsentimental tears, and sometimes with a bitter laugh. Okay, so is this a novel description, or is this my big fat Greek wedding? What? Each of its characters is indelibly, tenderly rendered. Its heroes are people who have been broken by the world they lived in, and then rescued, patched together by acts of love and by hope. The tale begins with Anjum, who used to be Aftab, unrolling a threadbare Persian carpet in a city graveyard she calls home. We encounter the odd, unforgettable Tilo and the men who loved her, including Musa, sweetheart and ex-sweetheart, lover and ex-lover. Their fates are as entwined as their arms used to be and always will be. Okay, all right, so this blurb writer is obviously missing someone badly. I'm reading this description. I don't remember reading this before, but I'm reading this description, and instead of thinking about the book, I'm thinking, you really ought to Skype that person because you're out of control. So hyperventilate anymore. But I actually read this. I actually, and part of that hyperventilating description is true. The book is really a clear-eyed look at the redemptive power of love, how love can reach out to someone who feels themselves lost and gone and actually save them. And that sounds trite, and lots of contemporary novels try to do that and fail. This is I don't know if you could hear, but the siren that you heard coming for 50 minutes, uh, that Doppler shift where the sound gets louder as it comes closer to you and then it fades off, that didn't actually happen. It got louder as it got closer to us, and then it stopped because immediately, as soon as the car passed the front of this house, they turned the siren off. It's anyway. If you see this in bookstores, first of all, it's lovely. I mean, what a beautiful book. But if you see this in bookstores and you're up for a good meaty novel that will make you in the end feel good, definitely do it. So, and then we got this thing, whatever this could be. I'm hoping it's one big book instead of many little books, but you never know. What have we got here? Oh, very nice. Oh, good. Oh, fantastic. All right, so unbelievably, this is June 2nd instead of June 6th, but it doesn't matter. This is the finished copy, very nice, of Implacable Foes. I think we saw the drab Oxford ARCs don't have any cover art. This is the finished copy by Waldo Heinrichs and Mark Galicchio about the war in the Pacific from 1944 to 1945. So after the surrender of Germany, when the only war left was the one that all of a sudden the United States was faced with the logistical task of uprooting and moving not only 3 million combat service people, but also all of the infrastructure that they need all the way around the world. and also changing the form of combat that they have to do from land combat to sea combat. I mean, yes, they will go to islands and root out Japanese resistance from island to island, but first they have to travel for weeks on the open ocean. And the world is completely different. There's tons of disease. There's nonstop tropical rain. Trench foot makes a reappearance. That's and the authors do a very good job. It's a straightforward, just no nonsense, buzz cut military history that looks at every single aspect of that final stage of World War II, and it's just incredible. And I'm glad to have the finished copy because I'm actually reviewing it for. It's not the Christian Science Monitor, the American Conservative Magazine. I'm reviewing it for them at a nice, generous length, and it's always nice to have a finished copy when you're doing that because the Oxford ARC that I read and that I've been mostly working from doesn't have a critical apparatus, doesn't have all these notes that I can check or dispute, doesn't have an index. So if I need to find something, I have to hunt for it. Very nice. Okay, good. All right, so this is a fairly good balance between fiction and nonfiction. I kind of like that. So we've got Implacable Foes, America versus the Empire of Japan. We have Soldiers and Civilization. We have The Lost History of Stars. We have The Taking of K129 with the help of Howard Hughes. We have Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows. And also The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. So 2 Indian novels on opposite ends of the serious spectrum. We have The Shadow List by Todd Moss. We have You'll Never Know, Dear, a thriller. And Talking Pictures by Anne Hornaday about what we do when we go to the movies. So there you go. That's fiction and nonfiction on a nice midwinter book haul. So thank you very much, BookTube. I'll see you soon.